the coordinator of accessibility services at Athabasca University, and I'm really excited for you to be here and to be here with you tonight, in the first of our learning strategies for online learners at Athabasca University. Really keen to listen to this presentation and have interactions with Deanna Finelet, who is a learning strategist. And I will not take up any more time, and I want to welcome you all. I want to also remind you that you can turn on captions under the more or ... menu, and you can be following along with closed captions or with transcripts. So thank you so much, everyone. And a little bit of ground rules around questions. If you have a question, feel free to type it into the chat or raise your hand, and someone will acknowledge you, and then you can ask your question, please. And with that, I will turn it over to Deanna. Welcome, Deanna.
Great. Thanks, everybody. I'm so excited to be able to meet and chat with everybody. So this is the first session of our 6-part series looking at some helpful learning strategies necessary for success in online learning. As Carrie said, my name is Deanna Finelet. I'm the founder of My Learning Coach. And at My Learning Coach, we have a team of educational professionals who provide academic coaching, advocacy, and support services to students and families all across Canada. We really believe that all students can learn, and we're really committed to supporting students to experience educational success specific to their goals. Many of the students that we support reach out to us because they're experiencing barriers to learning related to disability or chronic medical conditions. Some students just want to improve in their learning and aren't necessarily experiencing barriers, but want to just give themselves the skills to be as successful as possible. So I'm super excited to guide you through this next 6 weeks together, and hopefully we can all gain something new. And I'm also excited to equally learn from you. So feel free to please ask your questions and share your experiences. I don't want to speak just at you. I really, really do want to have you involved and chatting as much as you find helpful, okay? So a little bit of information about myself. I have a Bachelor of Education degree in special education. And then I have a Master's of Education degree in educational psychology from the University of Alberta. I also have ADHD and a learning disability. And so I use this lived experience as well as my knowledge of removing barriers to learning and guiding others to obtain success, all encompassed together in order to support students. Prior to my work in post-secondary and My Learning Coach, I spent many, many years working within the K-12 education system as a teacher, a special education facilitator, and a school administrator. Currently, I'm focusing in post-secondary education, and I'm loving it. And I'm supporting students as an educational strategist, a learning specialist, and I'm also teaching courses in educational psychology. So I have many hats, many roles, and all of them are kind of coming together with My Learning Coach to support students to be as strong and as comfortable as they are with their learning process. And so I have to say, most importantly, I think out of all of these roles on the screen, the one that I most identify with is being an advocate, because I cannot stress enough how much I believe all students can learn as long as they have access, and they can learn as long as they have the resources and strategies and tools to access their education. So they need to have access to learning, and that's what my mission is. And so that's what I'm hoping to share with all of you over the next 6 weeks. So speaking of the next 6 weeks, we have 6 sessions in total. Now, it's not going to be enough time to give you all of the information that you need to know. It's going to kind of just give you a big overview, and then you can kind of choose where you want to push and get a little bit more deeper into certain topics. Over these next 6 weeks, I'm hoping that we can grow and build on these strategies, hoping you'll take some information, you'll probably leave some, and hopefully there's a little bit of in between where you're gathering what you find might be helpful. And so, as I said, please feel free to ask questions along the way, raise your hand, chat in the text box or text in the chat box, whatever. Send a smoke signal if you need. I'm kidding, don't, but just let me know, okay? We'll also have some time at the end for some questions. And I don't know everything. So if there's something I don't know, I'll find out for you for the next time. Okay. So definitely want to be here as a resource for you. Okay. So everything that we talk about is going to look at research, but we're not going to look at research in a really boring way. Okay, so I really want it to be applicable for you. All of these 6 sessions, I really guided around some of the work that Dr. Linda Chimilar, the coordinator of the Post-Baccalaureate Certificate in Inclusive Education and Associate Professor here at AU. So in 2011, she looked at self-regulation skills and the post-secondary distance learner and looked at what was needed and what was necessary. Through that work, she found out that students not only need to learn a subject online, but they actually need to learn how to learn online. A key aspect of this or of the student's academic success is self-regulation, and that's what we're going to talk about in depth today. So self-regulation, that's a combination of initiative, intrinsic motivation, and personal responsibility. The need for self-regulation, as we know, is particularly important in online environments because of the distance between the student and their teacher and the tutors and the other students. And that's really, really, really important. So we're going to focus on that in terms of self-regulation, and then just draw upon what Linda found in her work and draw that through all 6 of the sessions. So we know that self-regulation means being interested, it means being engaged, but that's not enough on its own. We also need to have strong time management skills. We need to be organized. We have to have a big tool of strategies that we can use when things are not going as we had hoped, or maybe something's not as accessible to us. Okay, so like I said, all of these sessions, I'm going to focus on some research validated learning strategies that support learners to self-regulate in their learning journey. And we're going to talk about that in more detail. So let's just get right into it on self-management. So self-management, that means taking care of yourself and your needs, being realistic of these needs, and also setting some goals for areas that, you know, we're maybe not as comfortable or confident in. So I broke it down into 3 parts, okay? So we're going to break it down into self-efficacy, self-analysis, and goal setting. So just to give you kind of the quick overview, when we're talking about self-efficacy, we're talking about one's confidence in their ability to do something. When we're talking about self-analysis, we're talking about being able to reflect and analyze and know our strengths and our weaknesses. And then from that, we engage in a goal setting process. So establishing an outcome or a goal that's going to serve like a larger aim of one of our actions. So an example that I often give is rock climbing. Super outdoorsy. I love being outside. I could have a belief that I'm a really strong rock climber. I'm not. Let's just put that out there right off the bat. But I love indoor rock climbing, and the thought of going rock climbing outside just sounds so much fun to me. So if I'm talking about my confidence in my ability to be a rock climber, before I can be truly competent and successful in that task, I really need to engage in some reflection, some self-analysis on that. So for the example of rock climbing, some things I could think about would be reflection on my physical strength, my upper body strength. Do I have proper technique? Do I know how to use the equipment? Do I know the safety stuff? Do I have the knowledge of the setting I'm going to or the outdoors? And I don't have all of that. I don't. So if I wanted to actually improve as a safe rock climber, what would I do? Well, I would set some goals. And so my goals could be something like, you know, increasing my rock climbing confidence or learning to rock climb confidently or safely. And then I'm going to have some strategies to achieve that goal, because simply saying that I'm going to do it is not enough. So some of my strategies could be to enroll in like rock climbing lessons, to improve my fitness, to connect with some rock climbing groups. So we're going to talk about this in the lens of learning in a little bit here. So let's talk about self-efficacy in more detail. So self-efficacy is our competence and our ability. And one of the ways researchers have explained students' ability to navigate online classes is by measuring their self-efficacy. And they found that there's actually a direct link between one's self-efficacy or their competence to navigate the computer and the internet, the learning management system, and then to learn successfully in an online environment. Now, it sounds super simple. to learn online, you need to be able to be confident with technology, right? It doesn't take a master's degree to figure that out. However, it's different than what we think. The way that we use technology for online learning, it's different than how we use technology to socialize, to shop on Amazon, to stream Netflix. It's a different use and different skills to navigate that technology. So let's look at computer self-efficacy right off the bat. But before we do that, does anyone have any questions about self-efficacy and the computer use and the learning management system? Okay.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Did I cut someone off?
No, I
Hello?
don't think so.
Do we get this in a PowerPoint after? Like, I'm taking notes, but are we going to get any of this information?
Oh, friend, don't take notes. It was sent out to you. So if you check your email, it should be there. And if you didn't get it, we can resend it to you. But you have all of this. And then you'll have a recording, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Take notes if you need to focus. I need to take notes to focus. But if you're just trying to rush it all down, no. We'll give that to you, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So let's talk about computer self-efficacy. So as I said, there's a strong connection between one's computer use and even internet use and their satisfaction with online learning. When we're talking about the computer, we need to really kind of take a step back and really think about our confidence to use the devices that we're using. For example, we need to know how to install the programs that we're going to need to be successful. So what do people do oftentimes before they embark on in post-secondary? They get a new computer. Well, you need to figure out that computer. And I suggest figuring it out before you start the course, because your demands while you're doing the course should be focused on the material and the content, not figuring out how to download Microsoft Office onto the computer. And I don't know about all of you, that is a big mission for me. Little things like that, or heaven forbid, setting up a printer. My goodness, I need to call in some tech support for that. So just making sure that you have all of the confidence in your ability to navigate your system, because you are online. It's not just as easy, though. We have great tech support at AU. It's fantastic. But knowing that you have all that is going to alleviate a lot of the stressors. So installing programs, formatting documents. If you know that you're in a psychology program, there's a good chance you're going to be using APA format. You shouldn't have to know how to do it all right up front, but we should know how to have the access to the resources in order to achieve some of the tasks, okay? Another one is the electronic file storage. How are you storing your stuff on computer? Do you have a naming system? We'll talk all about this next week, but this is the kind of confidence that we need to have. Just like you need to organize your gym stuff to go to the gym or to go to like some workout class or something fun. You need to have that all organized and ready to go. It's the same thing for your learning. We need to have your technology all organized. Right before you start a course is not the time to switch from a Mac to a PC or vice versa. Just saying, I've done it. It's not a good idea because you really need to take that time, right, to kind of figure out the technology. Big barrier for me always, when I was in post-secondary and even still as a professional, is remembering my login passwords. I hope some of you do this. Maybe raise your hand if you do. Please tell me someone does this. I forget my passwords all the time. And I also have my computer where like I save my passwords automatically. And then if I have to go onto another device, I'm hooped because I really don't have all of that. So coming up with some sort of system that's going to work for you before the term starts, super, super, super important. I like to call these skills or refer to these skills as like the hidden curriculum because you have to learn how to navigate all of this before you are, or as you're learning the courses. And I always make the joke in the office that like, when the photocopier breaks, I'm like, I didn't take that course in university. Kind of the same thing here with like installing the printer and, you know, figuring out how to track my passwords so I can get into my Alberta Student Aid account when I need to access stuff I need to access. Okay, so the big tip right there is just to figure out your technology before the term starts. Again, it's so simple, but so many people don't. I was working with a student today who did not have access to Microsoft Office, and that was like a huge stress, right? And so you had to kind of spend the time figuring that out instead. Okay, so along with the computer goes the internet self-efficacy, and the same thing. The research shows our confidence to use the computers coupled with the internet to search for information needs to be there. There's a huge correlation between one's computer and internet self-efficacy with their satisfaction with online learning. So when my mother learned to use Facebook, it was the Facebook and it was so stressful and she couldn't figure it out. So she just kind of like wrote it off. Similar thing kind of happens with online learning. If you're having trouble navigating and we're not having the most positive experience because of our own confidence to navigate the technology. And so when we're talking about confidence to use the internet, again, it's not the Amazon shopping. It's not using the social media. A lot of us are pretty good at that, maybe too good at that. It's to use the internet to search for information. Using the online research databases, navigating the library, looking for other resources that can help us later down the line when we do approach a barrier. If we're confident in our ability to navigate the resources available on the internet, then we're going to be more confident in order to access kind of that. Jolie said, can you use the Google Docs platform instead of Microsoft Office? Are you meaning like in your courses, Jolie? Like, can you complete your assignments in Google Docs? That's actually one of the strategies. I'm thinking that's what you're meaning. Correct me if I'm not, but that's actually one of the strategies that we're going to talk about when we talk about writing assignments and organization next week, because I tell students all the time, Google Docs is very user-friendly for me. It works for my brain. If you're a Google user, it's great. Even OneDrive is really fantastic too. I'm thinking that might be what you're asking, Julie.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Exactly
no,
it.
for sure.
Yeah.
So much like we have Mac users and PC users, we have OneDrive lovers and Google Doc lovers. And then we have people in between. And then we have those that just don't know. And that's fine if you don't know. So I have a Mac sticker on the back of my PC, and I say like I'm a PC user just because, or I'm a Mac user just because I really want to be, but I'm not, because it just doesn't work for my brain. Same thing with your access to your digital files. We just need to find something that's going to work for you. And what works for you might not work for someone else, but knowing ahead of time what's going to work for them. There's nothing more frustrating than trying to reach out for writing support from somebody. I get this all the time as a strategist. Students, I'll be connected with them to work on an assignment, and I have to spend a couple sessions teaching them how to access Google Docs or how to access OneDrive and make that work for them. Okay, so becoming familiar with all that stuff ahead of time. If any of you have children, I have a 13-year-old son, he cannot access this stuff at all. They do not teach it. Teachers don't have time to teach us. I think maybe they try, actually. I was a teacher, we try. But it's just the skills that we have to teach it. Some people are just not going to know intuitively, okay? So yes, our individual confidence to navigate all this computer and internet stuff is directly going to be related to our success in online learning. Okay, this is a big one too. The learning management system, Moodle. Again, we have Moodle lovers and we have non-Moodle lovers. It really depends what you're comfortable with, how your brain works, and your experience with the learning management system. So with this, we know through Linda's research that a student's ability to navigate and access information using their online learning platform, so in Athabasca's case, it's Moodle, students report that they can value their ability to access course information. They value their ability to interact with online resources. They really want to participate in those online discussions if it's accessible to them. And they also want to be able to contact lecturers and tutors. So we want to know, they want to be able to, you guys want to be able to reach out and ask questions. Well, we got to get familiar with that system first, because it's there and it's designed, though I will admit some courses a little bit better than others, it is designed to be a helpful tool if we allow it to be a helpful tool. So being able to use and navigate the learning management system platform seems to be a really critical element of taking an online course and succeeding in it, because you don't have the instructor in the front of the room reminding you. You don't necessarily have your peers that you're lining up to get into the classroom or having those conversations outside of the classroom in the hallway about what's up and coming and what's happening next. Okay, so my big thing there is to really survey the learning management system. You have to know how to contact your tutors. You have to know how to do it when you're at a point of frustration or a time of crisis. You want to know how to access the counselor. There's things that you want to know how to access. Accessibility services, anything like that. Go through the website, go through your learning management system and figure that all out so you can know where to go and you're not wasting valuable time when you're on a deadline crunch trying to get to that information, okay? The amount of times that I have students like, hey, how do I submit my assignment? Fair question, but having to walk them through it is something that we could have done a little bit before. And you still might have to do it a little bit as you're going, but eventually it becomes kind of second nature. Can anyone relate to that? Like when you first started in online learning, perhaps at AU, and you were first introduced to the Moodle, you were like, what the heck, I'm never going to figure this out. And then hopefully by the end of the course, you were a little bit more acquainted to kind of where you needed to go with that, right? So we see that all the time. I felt like that with Instagram as I date myself here, because that is a platform that I'm just like, what? How do people work through this? But others can navigate it quite successfully.
Crystal, actually, or your Crystal, your hand. Oh, your hand is up. I apologize. That people are raising their hand, like me too.
Sorry, Crystal. I couldn't figure out how. See, speaking of knowing your platform, I couldn't figure out how to get you to pop up.
Okay, thanks. I'm just going off of what you were just saying, and you know, and going from where, like you said, we're not with our peers outside of classroom. Then we go inside class. We're doing this all online. I found what I found. Well, I have to re-enroll for this year because I started September, but I had my dad passed, my grandma's gone, that passed as well. So, but anyways, I found with my first assignments, like with just the instructions, it's not like you're in a classroom where teachers give an instruction. You can put your hand up and say, "Oh, did you mean, or what do you mean by this? Or do we have to do? Are we doing all these questions, or just this one for this one, and this one for that one?" I found that the time it took to get a professor on a not Zoom, I forgot what platform it was, and then to just question about the assignment, you know, that was a lot because you're just reading something, and it's not like the professor's there in classroom where you can say, "Oh, did you mean, or are we doing, or do I do this question first and then next week do that one? Or are we doing it all together?" So I found that just the tutoring with the I like the basket. I found the tutoring with the professor was helpful because then you get a breakdown of something you're reading on a screen. I'm not saying I couldn't read the instructions, but I'm just saying I need it to be broken down for me to understand.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's real. That happens. It absolutely happens. And so if we're in and this is what we're going to talk about in a minute here. If we are in an environment where something is not working for us, we need to create an artificial environment by putting in some strategies, some structure, some routine, some scaffolds is what they are, in order to make that environment accessible. And so one of the strategies we're going to look at when it comes to completing assignments and avoiding procrastination and stuff is how to take the material that they're giving you, the assignment description, and how to break that down in a way that you can kind of figure out exactly what they need you to do. So that's one of the strategies. I saw another strategy pop up on here. Let me go back to the chat. Alana had said, we've suggested in the past to have forums where we can all post questions, and the profs seem very open to it. Yeah, for sure. There are some courses where they do have the forum. The other thing I say is somehow try and get to know the students that are in your class. Some classes are easier than others to do that for sure. But I have a student that I'm working with through my learning coach who's connected with, I think there's like a group on Facebook or something, somewhere in social media with AU students in a specific course. And they're able to kind of create that artificial environment where you would have in an in-person institution where you're mingling outside of class, right? And talking about assignments. So there's lots of ways to kind of create that for you, and you need to do that for sure. Also, this is where, like in an online situation where you don't have the instructor necessarily right there where you can catch them after class, you might have to wait a couple days for office hours or for them to respond to your emails. But you can also create an opportunity if you're getting stuff done ahead of time through your own structure and your own kind of scaffolds that you need to be successful. You've got time, so you can kind of put the call out for the instructor, and then you're not stopping and halting your studies. You can work on something else. Easy to say in theory, but I know in practice sometimes it's a little bit difficult. Leslie, about the group text in the chat there, everyone. Yeah, there's lots of good strategies there. So when we're talking about we've got internet self-efficacy, computer self-efficacy. They kind of go together. Okay, we've got the learning management system, the Moodle. You need to be proficient in all of them. But being proficient in using the computer and navigating your technology and using the internet and your Moodle doesn't mean you're going to be successful in online learning. Also, not being proficient in those tools or having those tools not innately kind of just be something that's natural for you doesn't mean you will not be successful in online learning. So it's a little bit different. The self-efficacy to learn online is different from the other mentioned kind of technological components because there are other components regarding self-efficacy to learn online. So one of those things is our belief. So if we believe that we can be successful in an online course, we need to truly know, like our rock climbing, that we have the skills to be successful in the online course. So we need to know, do we need to interact both socially and academically with peers? If that's the case, it doesn't mean online learning won't work for us. It just means we have to put some structure in place for us and some systems in place to replicate that the social interaction with others, or yeah, all of that. So we need to just put those systems in place. We need to create the environment that we need to succeed. And we can do this through structure, strategies, and resources. So I really can't stress enough that we need to be confident in our ability to learn independently in an online asynchronous environment. Okay, which is what a lot of the courses at AU are, not all, but a lot of them are, in the absence of peer and instructors. If that's going to be a struggle for us, and it is for a lot, there are things that we can do, and that's what we're going to talk about here. How do we figure out what we're going to struggle with? That's a really good question. I'm sure some of you are thinking it. I think about it all the time. So we need to ask ourselves and engage in a self-analysis, engage in a reflection. So the example of, do you need social and academic interaction with your peers? If not, awesome. If yes, it doesn't mean that online learning is not going to work for you. We just need to create that interaction with your peers. Do you need to interact with your instructors and tutors? Same thing. You can still interact with your instructors and tutors. It's just going to be different. So we need to frame how we're thinking about that interaction and change kind of how we're approaching that interaction in order to help us. One thing we often forget about is, does online learning work or align with your preferences or your needs? Online learning is fantastic for busy working parents. It's fantastic for students that live in remote parts of the country. It's fantastic for people that are working full time. It's fantastic for those night owls or those that just don't really like going to campus, to a physical campus. Is it going to work for your attention and focus? Do you have a space at home where you can shut the door and not listen to your kids down the hall? Or do you have a space where you can actually sit and learn and focus, where you're not just watching the TV in the background? So creating all of this stuff is going to be really important. When we're engaging in the self-analysis, we need to be realistic about our commitment levels. We need to examine our past struggles and our past successes. We need to know about our concentration, our setting, all of that. If you are going to struggle with focus, then we need to change your environment, or we need to reach out for strategy support, or if we're, there's just a whole bunch of different things. If the study space isn't working, then maybe we need to physically go to a library, or some students go to a coffee shop, change up your environment. So online learning doesn't have to be the perfect fit. There's no perfect fit when it comes to learning, but we just need to be aware of our needs, and we need to secure the supports before our studies happen. So once you're in the middle of your courses and your busy life working and doing what you're doing, plus your courses, that's not the time to then renovate and put in an office in the house. So super simple things, right? That's if you're living in a new place and you don't know where the nearest Starbucks is, maybe that's easier to find out, but you want to figure all of those structures out ahead of time. Okay, if you know that you need to work full time, which a lot of us do to get through post-secondary, and you're doing it, I'm so proud of you. You're doing it, and you're doing the best that you can do given your situation. We need to, and the beautiful thing about online learning is you need to create that routine in your own way. So I have a student that's a single mom of 4 kids, little ones, noisy little ones. So for her, she does all of her coursework really late at night, and AU's worked really well for her. So, but she's had to create that structure and that space and that routine and create that environment. So when we are Engaging in self-analysis, there's many ways to do that reflection, okay? Many, many ways. Reflection comes in so many forms. There's no right way. There's no wrong way. There are just ways that are efficient and effective, and there's ways that aren't. There's ways that are going to work for some and ways that are not going to work for other. It looks different for everybody, and it's going to change on you as an individual. So how I reflected when I was in post-secondary years ago is way different than how I would reflect now. Just like success looks different for everybody. Everybody has a different benchmark of what is success for them. What's a successful form of self-reflection? What's a success for you in terms of your learning, in terms of your goals? It's all different. So some ways to reflect, common ways could be to meditate or journal or pray. But even like engaging in conversation with your friends or your colleagues or your classmates or your spouse, just different ways to talk about a process. So on this screen, I do have a visual here. Some people need templates to reflect. I don't personally, but a lot of people need it as a scaffold. They need a starting point to kind of guide it. So this is one, there's a couple prompts that I have on here, like how do I learn best? What's going to work well for me? What do I know about myself? What supports and or resources would help me succeed? I mentioned earlier that I have a learning disability, and it's in math and reading. So, I mean, if I'm taking a math course, heaven forbid that ever happens. I have nightmares about it all the time. But if I had to enroll in a math course or counting or whatever, I know that I would need significant supports. So I know that I'm going to have to connect with the accessibility office at the institution. I know I'm going to need, accommodations to my learning plan. I'm going to need a tutor 100%, and I'm going to need a lot of it. I'm going to need extra time. I'm going to need tailor other aspects of my life so that I can focus on that course and be successful. Okay, so just being really reflective. Now, throw me in a psychology course and I'm fine. No problems. I don't even have to, maybe I have to think twice sometimes, but not often. It just comes naturally to me, right? And so engaging in that self-reflection is going to be really important. And then what's your motivation? Why are you doing this? And oftentimes when I ask students that when they're really at a point of crisis or they're really stressed out, the answers really, really surprise me. Everybody has a different point of motivation. Some people, going to university in itself is huge. A lot of people actually. Getting accepted into a program, completing a course, that is their goal. That's what they want, and that's what they're going to do. For other people, that's not enough. I work with students that I have a student right now that's applying to med school, and the grade she's getting and the marks she's getting, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're rocking it. But for her, it's not rocking it for what she thinks, right? Whereas I have other students that are, completing a course successfully and they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought this can happen. This is great. This is why learning is so exciting. Everybody has their different their different motivation. Everybody has their different levels of success and versions of success. So really being careful to be mindful of that for yourself is really important, and to just give yourself some grace because you're doing it. And so what does success look like for you? It's going to be different for everybody. So that's really important to kind of consider as well, okay? When we're engaging in that reflection. Okay, now goal setting. How many of you rolled your eyes? No one's gonna raise your hand and tell me. I know some of you rolled your eyes when you read goal setting. I rolled my eyes when I typed goal setting because we've often been like trained in, like, I think specifically of like high school, those comm classes in junior high, about like setting your SMART goals and making them realistic and achievable. Yes, they need to be realistic and they need to be achievable. I would never say to a student, I'm never going to critique a student's goal ever. I'm not going to critique it. However, I might challenge you to break the goal down further so it's more achievable and realistic. So your goal setting I do not believe it needs to follow some prescribed template. It needs to be a goal that is meaningful to you, and you have to have steps so you can achieve that goal. So we're really looking at our motivation, exploring our why, setting ourselves up for success. Some people need templates to do that, and that's totally cool. I started with my least favorite template, but it's actually the favorite of a lot of the students I work with. For my brain, it's my least favorite because it's too prescriptive for me. But for a lot of students, they need that to kind of guide them through. So I gave a sample of some goals on here that my Com 20 teacher in high school would have critiqued for me, for sure. I know it. So one of them is I want to do better in school. That's awesome. That's so good. What specifically about school do you want to do better in? Well, I want to work on improving my grade in psychology this term. Fantastic. That's great. We can do that. So what do I want to happen? Or why do I want this to happen? Well, I want to get into grad school. Cool. I want to increase my GPA so I can get into grad school. Awesome. We can work with that. Prompting yourself. How will I know when I achieve my goal? Well, I know I'm going to achieve my goal because on my psych midterm, I'm going to, what did I put on there? I'm going to earn a B or better. Okay, well, that could be, that could work for you for sure. That's something that we can work towards. So you see how these goals, these kind of this really not amazing example, but not a horrible example, how it's like, it's working for that person, right? It needs to just be something that you can relate to specifically. Is this goal realistic and how will I accomplish it? I think it's pretty realistic to say you're going to get a B in your psych midterm for sure for this specific student. How are you going to accomplish it though? Well, I'm going to meet with my psych tutor or my study partner, we'll be specific, every week to improve on my understanding of the concepts. Okay, I believe you follow through with those steps coupled with other supports, then for sure, that's definitely realistic. So, and then this template, you know, is just prompting like, well, why is this important to you? Well, I want to be a psychologist. I want to get into grad school so I can do that. Awesome. You've got a reason. It doesn't matter what it matters what your reason is as long as it's personal to you and it's meaningful for you. Okay. And then looking at the deadline. So templates can serve as a scaffold to guide you through the process. This is one template. It's not a perfect template, but it's going to be perfect for somebody. It's going to work really well for somebody. This one might too. So the trick to goal setting is just to set really clear, achievable goals. Here's another template. This template works for me. This is a favorite for me. So long-term goals, they should always include smaller short-term goals. Again, if your goal is to complete Psych 290, maybe you just want to complete it with a B. Maybe I want to complete it with a B. Like it depends on how you're thinking about it, right? Okay, well, how are we going to get you to complete that psych course with a B? Well, we're going to break it down into maybe 3 smaller goals. The example I have here is to improve your academic writing. Awesome. We can help you improve your academic writing. How are we going to do that? Just saying that you're going to improve your academic writing is not enough. My goodness, I wish it was. I would be a mathematician for sure. What are we going to do? Well, this one, the student's going to work with a strategist on writing skills. So maybe they're going to work specifically with a writing coach, directly one-on-one. They're going to have a classmate edit their assignments. Fantastic. I think that could be really helpful. Doing some peer editing, that's fantastic. Using EssayJack, which is a form of assistive technology that we're going to talk about when we do the writing session. So good. That's a great strategy. Maybe they're going to connect with the right site at AU, which is fantastic. I recommend everybody connects with it. So we've got some shorter term goals with some action steps that are achievable. They can check them off when they're doing it. They can build it into their day. We've got some really good strategies here. Okay. And so there's a couple more examples there, but we don't need to go over them in detail. Does anyone have any questions about that goal setting? It sounds super simple, but the amount of students that don't do it, it's alarming. Okay, I didn't do it in my undergrad either, and I would have done way better had I done that. Okay, so just another example for goal setting here, just another template. Look at your long-term goal. What are your steps to reach your goal? What are some potential barriers you might encounter? I have a really bad example that I use all the time, and every time I use it, I always preface it with, this is a really bad example, but for some reason, it always goes back to it. So many of us, I'm going to use the example of going to the gym and getting fit. We've all done it. Majority of us have done it. Okay, we're like, okay, I'm going to buy the gym membership. I'm going to buy the new shoes. I'm going to get the massive water bottle off Amazon that is going to be warm before I'll drink it. And I'm going to get fit. This is my year. And then what happens? Maybe they roll their ankle, or maybe they get busy at work, or maybe their kids' sports overlap, or something happens, and you've reached a barrier and we stop going. rather than coming up with the potential solutions. What am I going to do when this happens? How am I going to achieve and overcome that barrier? It's the same thing with learning. Life is going to get in the way. It is not going to be perfect. Barriers are going to come. And we need to be able to overcome those barriers. So what are we going to do to that? I do this with clean eating all the time. I get rid of all the junk in my house. My son gets annoyed at me. And then I'm like, yeah, we're gonna do this. 3 days later, we're ordering skip the dishes, right? Like it happens. So you get the beer. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do to achieve about it? You got to track your progress. You got to have your solutions. We got to go from there. Okay. So that's all about the strategy piece. And so a lot of what we're going to be talking about in terms of building upon strategies, those are going to be your solutions. That's going to be your tool belt full of tools that you're going to draw on. Not everybody is going to need to know how to use I don't even know the names of wrenches, whatever. Not everyone's going to need to know to do that because maybe you have a landlord that takes care of it, or maybe you have a husband that, or somebody that takes, or a spouse, whatever. Okay. But if you have those tools in case of emergency, you might be able to use them if you're exposed to it. Okay. I'm seeing some comments. What are they here? Lisa, I didn't bought the membership. Yeah, right. Lisa, you pay for the membership. Oh my goodness. And you don't use this, right? Yeah, for sure. Or the equipment was not as fun. 100%. Like for sure. I've got a very expensive clothes drying hanger treadmill in my basement. It just sits there. Okay. So we've got all the goal setting. We can give you the template. If you're not going to use it, it's not going to help. I can tell you to reflect. If you're not going to do it, it's not going to help. One thing that helps me is the most simple strategy ever, and it's not even fancy. Sticky notes. I love sticky notes. I cleaned my desk before I did the session, but usually I have sticky notes all over here. So keeping your goals visible. Put sticky notes wherever you need them, if that's going to be your goal. We see people doing this on like the mirror for like self-affirmations, right? Like daily affirmations. I am beautiful. I am kind. Like we do that, but let's do it with our learning. Put your goal on your desktop, your background. For me, it's everything I do is for my son. I'm like, I'm creating a future for him. I am doing this for him. Who do I have on my screen background? Him. He's not even cute anymore. He's 13. No one's cute at 13. But when he was 6, he was cute. So I put the little motivator for me there. Add some text to it. Put it on your cell phone background. Record it in your agenda. Make your goals visible. This is really strong goal setting behavior, which is going to be really, really important. Okay. So that's kind of my little thoughts with that. We can make all the goals. We can fill out the template. We can put the sticky notes on our desktop, on our mirror, whatever we're doing. But we need to reflect on it when it's not working. It's not going to work for everybody. And you're going to have to revise your goals before the next semester. I always like to do goals by semester, but that works for me. It might not work for you. And so you need to take that time to do that self-reflection. I love it when I see profs building in the self-reflection in the courses. Even though as a learner, I sometimes would have rolled my eyes, but I love it because it's prompting you to do something that research tells us is really important. So was your goal specific enough? So I won't give another, like one time I said I was going to run the Nashville Marathon right before the pandemic. My goal was not specific enough. I said I'm going to run the Nashville Marathon. What I needed to do is I need to break it down and say, this week I'm going to run this length. This week I'm going to run this length. Like I needed to break it down a little better. We need to be specific and realistic. Probably the most important thing, though, that I can stress is that we needed to access the proper resources or support to achieve the goal. That's the big thing. That's the key. Out of everything you're going to learn in these 6 sessions is you need to access the proper resources and support. You need to know how to access it when you need it, okay? Being realistic, what worked well, what didn't work well. And oftentimes we might reflect a little bit more when things didn't go well, but we forget to reflect when things went really well and then learn from ourselves. What did I do different this semester that allowed me to be more successful than previous terms? Oh my goodness, I'm going to replicate that. I'm going to build on that. I'm going to do the same thing over and over again so I can feel that success. Okay. One of the ways to do that is to keep a reflective journal. I see education programs doing this all the time with teachers. Teachers need to reflect because it's a really hard job and they need to be able to change their practice. We could argue that about a lot of professions, right? But they need to be able to be mindful so that they can alter their practice and do the best every year. So oftentimes in teacher education programs, we see this reflection practice built right in, right? And that's awesome. Reflecting. Keep a sample and show how far you've come. I often say to my students, like when I went to university, this was before we we kept digital stuff. Like we would hand our papers in like by hand and the prof would mark it and give you back. I wish I would have kept some of my graded papers because, oh my goodness, to see the growth from then to now would be astronomical. So really kind of setting yourself up for success with that structure, with that evaluation, and track your progress. That's where you're going to see the most growth, okay? I talk a lot in my work with students about the grown-up sticker chart, and I'm going to save that for another session. But we all need some sort of motivator, some sort of grown-up sticker chart. I guess I'm not saving it for another session, like our Starbucks, like getting our nails done, a massage, a new outfit, whatever it might be. We need to have something to celebrate our successes and just really be really mindful about them. So I have a takeaway task for you. It's not homework, it's not an assignment, and they're going to be different each week. But this one is really just, and it's a little tricky unless you're starting your course right now, but just be really mindful about your self-efficacy with the internet, with your computer, with Moodle, just being really mindful of that. Do you know how to find stuff? Or maybe if you were just scraping by and you haven't taken the time to get to know what the institution has to offer in terms of support, this might be the opportunity, and I challenge you to do that before next week. If you're at a point where you've done that, have you engaged fully in some self-analysis? Is there something you feel like you can reflect on? Maybe you finished a term and you're in between semesters right now. Take an opportunity to reflect on that. Use one of the templates if needed. Come up with your own. Do it on your own. Doodle, like talk with a friend. Do what you need to do. And then create some goals or a goal. Not even, let's think small. Start with one. Create one goal that you want to do next term. And you can say create a goal right now, and at the end of these 6 sessions, your goal might be different after I've kind of shown you a few of the strategies that are really, really, really helpful there. Okay, did someone have a question? Okay. So that's what I have for you today. We're going in way more depth. We're going in way more detail for the following 5 sessions. And I'm going to give you some really specific tips and tricks. And I'm going to try and cram in as much as I can to give you the overview. But know that there are resources if you want to go further into it. You can always reach out and we can connect there as well. Okay. Did anybody have any questions that you kind of were waiting? You can type them in the chat or you can ask, or some thoughts or reflections. Crystal, hello.
I was waiting. Did anyone go before me?
No, I think it's you, my friend.
Okay. Well, I'm glad. You know what? It's like it worked out for me having to redo my first year. I work full time. My mom runs a home daycare. Both my mom and stepdad are retired, but they still work. They run a home daycare, so I work from home as well. I work remotely. I'm a graduate of Durham College. I'm telling you about my story, just thoughts. So from Durham College, I got into the Bachelor of Professional Arts and Communication Studies. So I graduated June 21. And so I got into the yeah. So they take the 2 years, so I'm a transfer actually. And I'm just telling people not to give up because I got my dream job. I work from home. I work for online radio stations that are nonprofit organizations across Canada. I work from home. I'm doing my dream job. When I was going to Athabasca, some family members are like, "Well, you barely got got to college. You're still doing more." And for me, it's the Canadian degree. For me, it's a big deal. May not. Most people say graduate or PhD, but this for me, it's huge.
Yeah.
So don't give up. Don't give up. I work
You're
from
right.
home.
Thank you.
I'm still living at home. I'm lineal. I don't think I'm ever gonna move out. But you know what? Just push yourselves, and everyone. Like I like what you said, beginning, Indiana, that everyone can learn. You don't think there's anyone that can't learn? And, I think that has to be said more to kids in school, even growing up. Even for me, going through school, I think more people in school, like from elementary, middle school, high school, more people need to hear that, because it needs to change your way of thinking, change someone's outcome. But anyways, I'm happy with Athabasca, and I'll see you folks at the next sessions.
Thanks, Crystal. Yeah, to piggyback off that, guys, like I have a really significant learning disability that impacts me every single day of my life. And I remember being in high school. No one in my family's ever gone to university. I'm the first graduate. However, like that wasn't a thing. I was like, how am I going to graduate? Because I don't think I can pass that math 20 requirement that you need in Alberta. Like I remember that feeling of being like, I just want to graduate. I just want to pass like my course so I can graduate. And it's one step at a time. And I remember in grade 10, I had a teacher who say like, Deanna, like school just might not be your thing. Like it might not be your thing. And they tried to encourage my mom to get me in some like, I'm smart, I'm super smart, but I needed to have the tools and the strategies to do that. And I really, really, really believe that anybody can do anything that they put their mind to with the proper support. So, it's just about mindset, and it's just about being resourceful. And yeah, how you can kind of figure stuff out. So thank you, everybody. We do have a couple more minutes, though, if anybody wanted to pick my brain about anything. I'm not following the chat. I'm sorry, because I can't do two things at once because I have ADHD, guys. I need to be like real with my limitations sometimes. So
I'm not sure if I missed it or not. I had to run outside and help my son with something. But where do I go if I need to learn about OneDrive and the cloud?
That's a really good question. Lisa might have a specific suggestion, or Carrie, regarding AU. My go-to for everything is YouTube. That's what I do. But I don't know, is there a specific support at AU for that, Lisa?
The one thing that I often refer students to is when you're a student at AU, particularly undergrad, but I believe it's available for all, is you have access to LinkedIn Learning at no charge. So LinkedIn Learning has got amazing courses laid out with video, transcript, to help you learn tasks like OneDrive. Want to be an email expert in Outlook? Same thing. Like LinkedIn Learning is got amazing resources for technology. And a little secret that I learned is if you have an idea of how to use it, you can speed it up, the videos up to 1.5 and listen to it a lot faster, get through the course, especially if you just need some general guidance.
So LinkedIn Learning, I just Google that, or I go onto Athabasca site and look for it, or?
Actually, what I would suggest you do, well, you can look at the information itself. I'll put the website in the student union, the Athabasca University Students Union actually has a website where they have all of the services available, and the LinkedIn Learning is also there. And I believe it links right to LinkedIn Learning, and LinkedIn is spelled like that. And I can actually probably even put the site in there, which makes a whole lot of sense now that I think about it. But yeah, you register with your Athabasca EDU address, email address, and then you have access to all like thousands of courses.
Yeah, that's good. Carrie, I'm not sure if you're still in or not, but I just read see, it took me that long to read, Carrie. It took me long to read your message. But Carrie, if you're in here, I just want to say, so everyone that didn't read Carrie's message, she said one of the things was, how do you implement the strategies while you're in the trenches? Well, here's the thing. You don't do everything at once. You choose one thing, my friend, and we're going to choose that one thing. And then once you nail that one thing, you're going to add in another thing. When I'm coaching students in our sessions, I'm like, I could be coined for the phrase of It's going to be hard now, but you're going to be an expert learner when you're done your degree. It takes your whole degree for you to figure it out. So those of you that are in here that are in grad school, I'm sure you're like nodding or thinking, relating to it somehow, because that's really what it is. You're learning to be a learner. And you're learning to navigate information as you go. So you're going to pick it up and you're going to go with what you go. And so my recommendation with that is to choose something that is going to be most impactful. So for example, if writing is not your jam, okay, my son jokes and says the only thing I'm really good at is cross-country skiing and writing paragraphs, because I can nail a paragraph, but I never used to be like that. So if writing is not your jam and it's not an area of strength for you, focus on your writing first. If procrastination is a big thing for you, if you find that you're always getting to the end of your course contract and you're always having to purchase an extension, or you're always sending everything in the last 3 weeks of the course or the last week of the course, then focus on procrastination and not the writing. So in that self-reflection, that's where you need to think, what do I need to focus on this term? One term at a time. If you have diagnosed disability, learning disability, ADHD, even like, Carrie, what else kind of qualifies? I'm thinking academic strategy. If you have like anything that's diagnosable where you can receive support, you can qualify for grants. Depression, anxiety, anything that's a permanent disability, you can qualify for some grants to get some support. And it really depends individually on the person, but there are grants available for students with disabilities to access one-on-one support through tutoring, through academic coaching, strategy instruction. There are supports available, and sometimes the hand over hand for one term is all students really need. If you do not qualify for those support, replicate it. I always say to students that group study sessions with the right group of people is often more effective than individual tutoring sessions, because you're engaging the metacognitive processing in your brain. You're talking about the material, you're challenging each other, you're engaging in conversation. So there's many things that you can do to replicate something and to get yourself that support. We just have to think outside the box in order to get that. Carries severe pain issues. That's going to impact absolutely your focus and your concentration. So what can we do to accommodate for that? And when I'm talking about accommodate, I'm not even meaning necessarily in the exam or in the course, like outside as you're learning the material. What can you do to help remove some of those barriers? Because there's lots of stuff that we can do if we're creative enough for it, okay, to replicate those situations. So lots of little tips and stuff, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to share this with everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Deanna. We have some links that have been floating in the chat, the LinkedIn Learning. So great. Great. What I'm going to do is going to stop the recording now. But before I do that, I just want to thank you right off the bat. What great information for everyday skills, right? Like being familiar and navigating, reflection, goal setting, micro goals, right? Yeah, so very good. Thanks so much. And I will stop the recording now. And we can continue this conversation for a couple more minutes.
Yeah, for sure.
The recording. Some really great suggestions and some, this is what I did, this is what I did. So very good, you guys.
Yeah, so even that
nice.
community, right?